Hey everyone, it's me, and I'm back to talk about a slate of bills all about empowerment zones. It's HB 2036, 2256, 2291, 1236, and 1237. Basically, these are all about empowerment zones, and I know what you're thinking. This must be for APS. This must be for SRP. Maybe it has to do with solar power. Wrong. Empowerment zones? That's a big forehead, by the way. Have nothing to do with power or empowerment. What it's about is basically providing public monies to private schools. To give you a quick history, Empowerment Zone started about 2 years ago when they passed a bill allowing for students of severe special needs to use public monies to either be homeschooled or to go to a private place that can better serve their needs. You can have the philosophical argument about public money is private, but the bottom line is pretty good bill probably. Getting those kids services that they need in a place that they need them. Then John Huppenthal pushed for legislation last year expanding those empowerment zones to anyone who goes to a D or an F school. Hence the robocall that blew up in his face last week. He was calling students. Parents of students whose schools are underperforming, saying you can use this money to send your child to a private school. Now there's some issues with that. First of all, number one is you're depleting the public schools of the very best kids, because the kids that are going to take advantage of that, let's be honest, a private school is going to generally cost more than $5,000, so the parents are going to have to supplement it. Two, they're going to have to transport their kid. Three, there's not going to be free or reduced lunch there. Four, you're going to have to pick your kid up at 2:30, which means you have to be a stay-at-home parent. You have to be available. I mean, let's just be honest. They don't deal with special needs kids very well, blind, handicapped, etc. That this type of approach to education, of privatization of education, is not only philosophically inappropriate, but it separates the wheat from the chaff. The kids that you're going to give that money to go to a private school are kids that are probably already being fairly successful because they have all the prerequisites and they meet all the demographics that typically are successful in the school system. And what you've left with is a school with smaller enrollment, with less funds, and kids who are less successful in modeling the behaviors that you want, and parents that are involved in the PTA and the organizations. So yeah, I have a problem with this bill, but it passed and it's now law. If you go to a D or an F school, you can take $5,000, which is 90% of the funding formula that we fund the public schools with, and apply it to a private school. Keep in mind, private schools don't take public tests. Ames, the Park test, any sort of standardized test. They're not required to have governmental oversight. They can have their own graduation requirements, own admittance requirements, their own curricula. They're not required to meet open bid laws and contracts. They can award bids to their friends, their buddies, their pals. And so you're using public monies without any public oversight or any public transparency, and you're giving them to an organization that doesn't do any public assessment. The point of sending kids to private schools is, in theory, they'll get a better education. So take the test and prove it. I'm sorry you don't like it. You're going to take public monies. You got to play by public rules. But then it gets even better. All those bills that I just read to you all expand this program in some way, shape, or form. One allows first responders kids to have access to these monies, as if there was a study that said fire department kids are struggling in schools. Makes no sense. Another bill expands it to include all children with free and reduced lunch. Do you have any idea how many kids that is in Arizona? The program currently has, I believe it's 746 students enrolled in that program. Now it's going to significantly expand next year. And then on top of that, now we're going to include what by some estimates could be as much as 700,000 more children that we're going to send to private school with public dollars, by the way. And let's be clear. Apples to apples, there's no studies that say private schools do better. In other words, if you take the same kid, same demographic, same class size, spend the same amount of money on him, he doesn't perform better in a private school. The private schools that perform better tend to spend more money and serve a different demographic, i.e. a Brophy, which averages $32,000 per year per child in expenditures between tax credits, between tuition, between grants, and between donations and endowments. The average public school spends anywhere from 7 on up, depending how you figure the formula out, if you include transportation, all that sort of stuff. So we're going to take all of these monies out of the public schools. We're going to separate the kids that are successful in the public schools. We're going to pull them out, and we're going to give them money to go to a private school. Philosophically, not so good. Public monies, private venture, lacking accountability, oversight, and assessment to prove that it's working. But practically, it also really sets us up for some real obstacles in terms of what we're doing to the public schools. Not only are we taking kids out of them, but we're taking the best kids out of them. Should people have choice? If your school's failing, should you be able to take your kid to another school? Yes. That's why we have open enrollment in Arizona. That's why you can take your child to any public school that you want. You can take your child to any charter school that we want. Why do we need to expand this to an organization that practices a certain either theology or philosophy or educational philosophy? Why are we expanding it to a group that has no oversight, has no accounting to the public, has no rules or standards that are transparent that we can observe and assess? I don't understand that. There are literally over 1,000 different elementary schools in the public and private, public and charter setting. Are you telling me that we can't find a good one to send these kids to? Now, if you're going to send private money, public monies to private school, I'm all in favor of it. If it's going to serve kids who are underserviced, let's pick up the entire defailing school and bus them to a private school. The entire school, not just select kids, the entire school. And let's see how successful that is then. Those are my thoughts. I hope it catches you up to speed on HB 2036, 2256, 2291, and Senate Bills 26 and 2037. Share the message, take it for what it's worth, and have a great weekend. Bye.